Verse 4 of Nehemiah chapter 6. 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave them the same answer. Same message, same answer, 4 times. The 5th time, Sanballat sent his aide to me with the same message, and in his hand was an unsealed letter. The enemy, friends, was persistent. He always is. Did they really want to be friendly and compromise with Nehemiah? The fact of the matter is that Nehemiah's presence was desperately needed in Jerusalem in order to complete the building of the wall. The letter from the enemy was couched in very polite language, but it was a hook, friends. A hook with a bait on it. Notice that it contained a threat. Verse 6 now. In which was written, in this letter was written, it is reported among the nations, and Geshem says it is true, that you and the Jews are plotting to revolt, and therefore you are building the wall. Moreover, according to these reports, you are about to become their king. This letter, accusing Nehemiah of attempting to rebel against the nation of Persia and set up a separate state, was made public, either by being posted or by being read aloud. It was designed to discourage those who were working on the wall. It accused Nehemiah of wanting to become king. Verse 7. After accusing Nehemiah of wanting to become king, verse 7 says that he appointed prophets to make this proclamation about himself in Jerusalem. There is a king in Judah, the proclamation said. Now this report will get back to the king. So come, let us confer together. Not only did they accuse him of claiming kingship, they also accused him of hiring prophets, false pseudo-prophets, to support what he said. This was propaganda, awful propaganda, to circulate about Nehemiah. The letter indicated that they wanted to find out if these things were really true, because they were going to report it to the king. They were exerting pressure on Nehemiah. Pressure to meet with him. Verse 8. Nehemiah says, I sent him this reply. Nothing like what you are saying is happening. Just making it up out of your own head. You are making up something that is not happening. Verse 8. Nehemiah's reaction to the enemy was, actually, you did not hear the things you are accusing me of. You made them up yourselves. Notice his transparent honesty and total boldness. If you read the whole book of Nehemiah, friends, in one sitting, and you seek to crystallize the whole of Nehemiah's life in one sentence, it would be this. Nehemiah, ears closed to man, heart open to God. That should be said of us. Our ears must be absolutely shut to all the threats and the schemes of man. But God speaks to the heart. God does not see as man sees. Man sees outward appearance. God sees the heart. God always speaks to the heart, unlike man who speaks to the ears. Keep your heart open to God. Verse 9. They were all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work, and it will not be completed. But I prayed, now strengthen my hands. In facing this problem, friends, what Nehemiah does in verse 9 is that he goes to the Lord. He says, the enemy is doing this to weaken me, to hinder your work through me. Lord, strengthen my hands. Verses 10 and 11. One day I went to the house of Shemaiah, son of Delilah, the son of Mehetabel, who was shut in at his home. Shemaiah said, let us meet in the house of God, inside the temple, and let us close the temple doors. because men are coming to kill you. By night they are coming to kill you. But Nehemiah said, should a man like me run away, or should one like me go into the temple to save his life? I will not go. Shemaiah, friends, a false prophet, pretends to have a great interest in Nehemiah's safety. He says, notice, he wants to reveal a plot against the governor's life. The temple was the only place where Nehemiah would be safe. He is asking him to be cowardly. What he did not realize was Nehemiah had a great, profound spiritual insight. He found out the motives behind Shemaiah's request. Verse 12, I realized that God had not sent him, but that he had prophesied against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. He had been hired to intimidate me, that I would commit a sin by doing this, and then they would give me a bad name to discredit me. Remember Tobiah and Sanballat, oh my God, because of what they have done. Remember also the prophetess Noadiah and the rest of the prophets who have been trying to intimidate me. Prophetess Noadiah and the rest of the prophets, along with Tobiah, Sanballat, and all of them using different means to intimidate Nehemiah. Nehemiah was in the thick of plots and schemes to destroy him. He dealt with a crowd that pretended to be his friends, but he still was in a very difficult spot. It was as if he were caught between the rock and a hard place. He turns around and finds himself in the middle of another plot. But then when he looks around, he sees plots and schemes and intrigues. So he turns up. That's what we should do, friends. When you look around, everything looks depressing. But when you look up, God will lift you up. The land was once again, in Nehemiah's time, cursed with false prophets. It seems that they were the most determined enemies of God's servants. Propaganda, friends, is an essential part of war. Nehemiah chapter 6 and verse 15. So the wall was completed on the 25th of Elul in 52 days. Without much fanfare, without trumpets, great seminary, ribbon cutting, the wall was finished. Notice how many days it took. Just 52 days to build the whole wall without a gap. Actually, it is less than 2 months, 52 days. When all our enemies heard about this, all the surrounding nations were afraid. They lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work had been done with the help of our God. The work was finished, as we said, in 52 days. Only God could have done this through them. But even though the wall is now completed, you notice there is still lurking danger. Verses 17 onwards. Also in those days the nobles of Judah were sending many letters to Tobiah, and replies from Tobiah kept coming to them. For many in Judah were under oath to him, since he was son-in-law to Shekinah, son of Ara, the son of Johanan, had married the daughter of Meshullam, son of Berechiah. Moreover, they kept reporting to me his good deeds, and then kept telling him what I said. And Tobiah sent letters to intimidate me. The enemy, friends, you notice in these verses, still persists in his opposition, circulating letters to nobles of Judah. Tobiah was evidently married to a daughter of one of the nobles, as we see here. Tobiah had contact right into the walls of Jerusalem, so that everything Nehemiah did or said was reported to Tobiah. Also, notice what it says, they kept reporting to me his good deeds. That is, these family members by marriage would come to Nehemiah and say, Nehemiah, it seems that you're too hard on Tobiah. He is a good man. Then they would begin to tell of his good works. They uttered my words to him. They were acting as liaison officers. Everything Nehemiah would say would go back to Tobiah. Tobiah reported to his people, and they brought Tobiah's messages to Nehemiah. This was what was happening. Threatening letters. Now let's move into chapter 7. Here we would find Nehemiah's register of the people. Friends, as we begin this chapter, we see that the wall has been completed. Now the people begin to protect the city of Jerusalem. Many of the homes have already been built, as we would notice. But inside the city, there is still much work to be done. They are still clearing out the debris. It is necessary to protect the city because the enemy, as we notice, has tried to thwart and hinder the rebuilding of the walls and would try to destroy the entire city. Verse 1 of chapter 7. After the wall had been rebuilt, and I had set the doors in place, the gatekeepers and the singers and the Levites were appointed. After the wall was finished, notice this expression. Nehemiah fixed the doors at the different gates, and then he appointed these men to protect the city. Gatekeepers were the ones who took care of the wall. They were on guard all around the wall, letting those on the inside know what was going on the outside. If the enemy or some danger approached, they would sound the alarm. Friends, you notice, they watched both day and night, a 24-hour job. The standards for this job were high. But we will find that some of the rules that were set were not enforced as they should have been. Having gatekeepers, as we notice in verse 1, and singers made for a great city, but that was not all. Levites were also appointed to serve. Verse 2 now. I put in charge of Jerusalem my brother Hanani along with Hananiah, the commander of the citadel, because he was a man of integrity and feared God more than most men do. Notice, friends, the word Hanani. Nehemiah says here, I put in charge of Jerusalem my brother Hanani. Hanani was not Nehemiah's blood brother. You will recall at the beginning of the book of Nehemiah that while he was serving in the court of Artaxerxes, one of his brethren from Jerusalem came and told him about the condition of the remnant that had returned. He was one of Nehemiah's fellow Israelites rather than blood brother. Hanani apparently was one of the leaders in Jerusalem, and it had been he who had informed Nehemiah as to the conditions in Jerusalem, as we read in chapter 1. So Nehemiah already knew this man. That is why he said, I gave my brother Hanani and Hananiah, the ruler of the citadel, charge over Jerusalem. He was one of the men placed in charge over Jerusalem because he was a man of integrity, faithful man who feared God above many others. You know, friends, God rates faithfulness above all other virtues. If you're faithful, in God's eyes, you're great. Verse 3 now of Nehemiah 7. I said to them, the gates of Jerusalem are not to be opened until the sun is hot. While the gatekeepers are still on duty, have them shut the doors and bar them. Also appoint residents to Jerusalem as guards, some at their posts and some near their own houses. Notice, friends, the gates of Jerusalem are not to be opened until the sun is hot, maybe 12 o'clock. Then Nehemiah goes on to say, shut the doors and also bar them. Not just shut, but put a bar across the door. Also appoint residents of Jerusalem as guards, some at their posts and some near their own homes or houses. You see, friends, the entrance to the city was to be watched during the day. At night, when anything could happen, all were to maintain complete, absolute watchfulness. Each one was to watch at least his own household. Important spiritual lesson. God holds us responsible for at least our own household. As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Jesus said, "And what I say to you, I say to everyone, watch." Mark chapter 13, verse 37. That should be the attitude of each and every believer. This great man of God, like Nehemiah and all the great saints of God, friends, maximized their opposition. They didn't let opposition paralyze them, but they maximized their opposition in their service for God. The Word of God says, looking unto Jesus, they watched. They were unifocused. Success and victory comes the moment we stop looking around us at our enemy that intimidates us and start looking above us at our God who lifts us up.